They don't have to worry about that. That's my concern. That shouldn't be put on them.
It's time for Tata Steel workers to decide on the future of their industry across Wales.
And in tonight's sport, who has the right to use our rivers? Canoeists, paddlers and swimmers want a change in the law.
Good evening. The crisis at the top of the organisation, which develops grassroots and elite sport in Wales, has intensified tonight. The chair and vice chair of Sport Wales have been suspended while separate complaints and concerns are looked into. A review by the Welsh Government also found there's been a significant breakdown of relations at a senior level. More from our political editor, Nick Savini.
It's the main body promoting sport in Wales, but the lid has been lifted on a board brought to a standstill by infighting. Sport Wales's aim to get every child hooked on sport is an ambitious target backed by more than £22 million of public money. But in November last year, the activities of the entire board were suspended after a vote of no confidence in this man, the current chair and former business troubleshooter Paul Thomas, by the other members of the board. In a statement today, the Public Health Minister, Rebecca Evans, confirmed that while the board would be reinstated, Paul Thomas would be suspended while formal complaints into him are looked into. The Vice Chair, Adele Baumgart, is also suspended because of separate concerns around the cohesive functioning of the board and its relationship with Welsh ministers. The Minister gave few details of what her officials discovered in their 2-month review, other than to indicate major problems at the top.
Because of issues relating to data protection and confidentiality, and on the basis of legal advice, it would be inappropriate for me to comment in any detail on the findings of the assurance review. I do want to make clear, for the avoidance of doubt, that the conclusions are principally related to a significant breakdown of some interpersonal relationships at a senior level within Sport Wales.
Sport Wales will now be able to plan to distribute funds to grassroots sports by setting next year's budgets, as the rest of the board has been reinstated under an interim chair. Paul Thomas is no stranger to controversy. A business academic and a troubleshooter in a BBC programme, he was sent in to try to make bin collecting in Blaen y Gwent more efficient. And he's not afraid to be abrasive. While the board was suspended in November, he conducted an internal review based on independent research. It claimed the organisation lacked transparency, was in danger of stagnation, and had been unwilling to listen.
Jazz Carling from Swansea takes Wales to gold.
One of the main aims of Sport Wales is to help stars like the swimmer Jazz Carling win medals in major competitions. An Olympic and Commonwealth Games coach was among those to speak anonymously in the review. The coach said elite sport would function without Sport Wales. Another source speaking anonymously said he'd been repeatedly surprised how insular Sport Wales had become. The Minister has now asked for this review to be completed by an independent panel member.
Nick, it's difficult to see how this will be resolved quickly.
That's right, Jamie, and wasn't it striking that Rebecca Evans today even failed to give a time frame as to when she hopes to resolve matters in this case. And, you know, even in the context of dry ministerial language used in the chamber, typically you get an overwhelming sense here of a pretty spectacular breakdown in communications and relations right at the top of the organisation. And away from the personality, and it's difficult in this case, there are unresolved policy differences. As I alluded to there is this internal review which criticised the strategic direction of Sport Wales and, in a way, the way it is run at the moment. Now, that review, Rebecca Evans said today, will be completed by an independent panel member, and it will be fascinating to see whether ministers here at the Welsh Government agree with those substantive findings and in due course allow Paul Thomas back. And if that happens, presumably he will take the organisation in a very different direction to where it is going at the moment. In the meantime, this is an organisation that can have some degree of normality because Of course, the rest of the board are now back. They have an interim chair in place and they can get on with the day-to-day business of planning the next financial year, which of course will be crucial in the here and now of Sport Wales, but serious question marks nevertheless for the future.
Nick Savini, thank you. The First Minister says his former economy minister was guided by experts when she gave more than £3 million to a Swansea steel coating company that later went bust. Edwina Hart has been criticised for sanctioning grants and loans for Cancoat, despite being told by a government official that its business plan was weak and inconsistent. More from our political reporter, Paul Martin.
Cans had been coated in wine alloy for years by American firm Alcoa. After it left, Cancoat was an attempt to restart the old production line. It couldn't attract private finance, but the Welsh Government put in millions in grants and loans. To no avail. 6 months after the final government loan, Cancoat went bust. The then Economy Minister Edwina Hart took the decisions to back the firm. Most of the money was put in after a civil service review described Cancoat's business plan as weak and inconsistent. So why did she continue to back it? The First Minister told the Assembly today she'd been acting on advice.
Well, I think what has to be remembered is that the investment panel recommended approval of the investment, and the Minister, I have no doubt, was guided by that information.
So it seems Edwina Hart was effectively weighing up competing civil service advice. On the one hand, the sceptical due diligence review. On the other, the investment panel recommending she support the firm. She went with the panel's recommendation. The government now acknowledges the panel got it wrong. So back in the chamber, the Conservative leader was looking for an apology.
Will you apologise for the loss of this money, which is taxpayers' money, in this particular instance, when so many warnings were made and so many of those warnings were ignored by your then minister, and ultimately it's the taxpayers lost out?
Well, I think I have to, I accept what the leader of the Welsh Conservatives has said, that he understood the situation in terms of the initial grant of support. This was a start-up business. Start-up businesses are inherently risky, but there must be an acceptance of risk by government, otherwise we wouldn't support anything.
Today's critical report by the Cross-Party Public Accounts Committee calls for a much more considered approach to risk identification and mitigation in the future. And it says investment decisions that go against official advice should be clearly documented. This afternoon, the Economy Secretary suggested the recommendations would be accepted and said a number of changes have already been made.
It is, as the First Minister has already identified, a case of fact indisputable that in the previous Assembly term, during which time my predecessor oversaw record growth, the success rate of businesses supported by Welsh Government was more than 97%.
The debate over risk versus reward rolls on. The Wales Audit Office will now begin a broader report on government support for business.
Paul Martin reporting. A teenager whose classmate died after being hit by a school minibus has told the inquest she'd seen 5 other near misses involving pupils outside the school. 15-year-old Ashley Talbot was running for his bus home and didn't use the pedestrian crossing when a vehicle driven by his teacher, Christopher Brooks, hit him at Maesteg Comprehensive in December 2014. The inquest continues. The First Minister has called for calm following the dropping of English stream education at a Carmarthenshire primary school. The Plaid Cymru leader Leanne Wood accused some Labour members of working with UKIP in a campaign against the changes at Ysgol Llangennych. The decision by the Plaid-run council will see the school become Welsh medium from September. Part of Colwyn Bay's Grade 2 listed pier will be dismantled after it partially collapsed into the sea earlier this month. Conwy Council has agreed to remove the damaged part of the Victoria Pier so it can be saved and stored for future restoration. It set aside £650,000 for the work, but says there's no way of knowing how much it will cost. Too many people with disabilities are being prevented from returning to work because employers are unwilling to make reasonable adjustments. That's according to Citizens Advice Cymru, which says people who are disabled or have long-term health problems are a third less likely to be in work than those who are healthy. Jenny Rees reports.
Watching from the sidelines. 2 years ago, she'd have been running about with her 2 sons. But Samantha Broom from Barry has developed a long-term pain and fatigue problem. While her sons have been understanding, she says her employer wasn't. Last year she was dismissed after taking time off sick. She's now planning to take them to an employment tribunal on grounds of discrimination.
Telling my family that I've lost my job is really difficult.
Because there's a sense of pride involved as well.
Yeah. I try to shield them from it as much as I can, because I don't want them to worry that I'm not in work, or they don't have to worry about that. That's my concern. That shouldn't be put on them.
Citizens Advice Cymru suggests she's not alone. Of the 11,000 clients they saw last year with an employment-related problem, just over 2,700, that's a quarter, had a disability or health problem. And it's that group which Citizens Advice feels are still encountering too much bad practice and discrimination by employers.
Clients have told us that it has a detrimental effect on their mental health that has deteriorated, or even their physical health. Other people feel that they've had no choice but to leave their job voluntarily, which has meant then that they are left with in a much more precarious financial situation.
The report highlights that in Wales, 79% of working-age people are in employment. But when it comes to those with a disability or long-term health condition, it's 43%. That leaves an employment gap of 36%. The equivalent gap for the whole of the UK is 32%. Helen Walby runs Recycle Scooters in Aberdare, where they dismantle and salvage motorbikes and sell them on around the world. She says small businesses are proportionally better at employing people with disabilities than larger firms. They're more agile, less formal. But size also brings challenges.
If you run a small business, you tend to wear many hats. So you will do the marketing, the finance and the HR, but you might not be a qualified HR professional. So finding things on things like the Business Wales website can sometimes be difficult, although the information is out there. And also having the time.
The Department for Work and Pensions say their Access to Work scheme provides funding for equipment or support, but they appreciate more needs to be done and are currently consulting on a work and health green paper. Campaigners hope it results in fewer people ending up on the scrap heap.
Jenny Rees reporting. You're watching Wales Today from the BBC. Much more to come before 7 o'clock. She's changing the perceptions of women in sport. Ashley Brace, the first professional female on the bill in Cardiff. And the other Marble Arch is in London. But where in Wales is this? It's Twin. Tonight, the calls to move it to somewhere more prominent. The results of the pensions ballot of Tata Steel workers by unions is expected to be announced tomorrow. The company's staff across Wales are being asked whether they accept moving from a final salary pension to a less generous scheme. Our business correspondent Brian Meakin is in Port Talbot for us tonight. What's on offer as part of this deal?
Well, workers are being offered by Tata a scheme that is better than many other companies around the UK offer, but it will give a significantly reduced pension pot to a lot of the workers here compared to what they currently have. Now, Tata says that this is essential in terms of securing the future of the business. It is tied to £1 billion of investment here at Port Talbot over the next 10 years if the company is hitting its profit targets, and also to keeping these 2 blast furnaces going for another 5 years. Now, unions said they would leave it ultimately up to the workforce to make the decision themselves, but in recent weeks the unions have now said they are encouraging people to support these changes.
Brian, just talk us through the timings. What happens next?
Well, we're expecting the result tomorrow. If it is a yes vote, then it's likely that Tata will simply go ahead with the changes. That's what the unions are encouraging as well. If it is a no vote, well, there doesn't seem to be a plan B at the moment. No one is quite clear what that will mean or what will happen if they vote to reject it. However, it does also have to be said that Tata is not bound by this result. It is a consultative ballot. One bigger thing, though, is that this is only part of the changes that Tata wants to see. It wants the pension scheme completely separated from Tata, the company, and it's unclear whether they're going to convince regulators to allow them to do that.
Brian, keep us posted. Thank you. At the other end of the country, a 14-year-old boy who suffered a serious brain injury when he was born at Wrexham Myler Hospital is to receive over £3.5 million in compensation. The boy, who needs 24-hour care and now has a life expectancy of 34, was starved of oxygen during his birth in 2002. The former head of finance at the homeless charity in Swansea has been charged with fraud. Robert Mark Davis was arrested in 2014 following an investigation at Cyrenians Cymru. The charity later went into administration. He'll appear at Cardiff Magistrates Court later this month. Let's get tonight's top sports stories now. Here's Thomas.
Jamie, thank you. Good evening. Who has the right to use our rivers? It's a debate that's raged for decades. And today, around 100 water sports enthusiasts took their protest to the Senedd. They're calling for fairer access to Wales's waterways and have presented a petition demanding change. The minister responsible has conceded the law needs to be improved and the rules simplified.
We've had the right to roam, now we have a row over permission to paddle. Around 100 took their fight along Cardiff Bay Barrage to the Senedd, calling on the Welsh Government to change the law.
There's no one definitive position as to what the legal situation is for people who want to enjoy the water. Some people believe that there is an absolute right of navigation on all flowing water. Some people think if you own the fishing rights, you also have the right to control navigation. Navigation being swimming, canoeing, all the rest of it.
More than 5,000 people have shared their opinions with the Welsh Government, with many saying the system is just too complex. Many here want what Scotland introduced 14 years ago, a countrywide code setting out who can access rivers, lochs and reservoirs. That would be welcomed by this former para-canoeist. Fran Bateman from Brecon, the world silver medalist, says the rules are putting people off coming here.
I've paddled around the world and I've got friends in other countries that won't come to England and Wales on paddling holidays, although we've got some classic rivers, because of the uncertainties over access.
But to an angler who pays for a licence and a permit to fish, a canoeist can be an unwelcome sight.
The angling community, to be fair, they have come to the table. They have offered voluntary access agreements. It's the canoeing body that are not willing to sign the access agreements simply because they're pushing for legislation for access for around about 365 days of the year. Now, the anglers don't get access 365 days of the year, and they also pay a rod licence.
The Welsh Government says outdoor recreational sports make a significant contribution to the Welsh economy. And the minister in charge says she will develop proposals to improve current laws, to remove inconsistencies in the current system and to simplify the rules.
That will be a real challenge, striking a deal that will address the concerns of landowners as well as the aspirations of canoeists and paddlers, introducing a system that works for all without causing more conflict on the waters.
Cardiff City could move to the top half of the Championship table with a win at Derby tonight. Newport County, bottom of League Two, are aiming to make it 6 games unbeaten against Grimsby. Gareth Bale could be back playing as early as this weekend, according to Real Madrid boss Zinedine Zidane. That's welcome news with Wales' World Cup qualifier against the Republic of Ireland next month. At the Welsh Open snooker, Mark Williams is trailing Elliot Slessor 3-1. There were 2 all-Welsh games. Jamie Jones beat Tyler Rees 4-1. Michael White defeated Dwayne Jones by the same score at the Motorpoint Arena in Cardiff. And that's where the Ebbw Vale boxer Ashley Brace is set to take centre stage next month. She will become the first professional female to be featured at a major event, part of a bill attracting thousands of fans. Brace has told BBC Wales that attitudes towards women in the sport have changed in the past few years. Here's Paul Heaney.
First, she excelled at amateur boxing, representing Wales. Then came selection for the Commonwealth Games. But Ashley Brace was denied permission to fight in Glasgow with just 2 weeks to go. She fought back, leaving the amateur ranks, turning professional. At the time, she said sexism was another battle.
Coaches and some were saying, you know, I don't think you should be doing this, I think you should be at home cooking and cleaning.
Now, after 5 professional fights unbeaten, including 2 by knockout, she says attitudes are finally changing towards women in boxing.
Even like going to fights, you know, people tapping on the back, you know, people that are there to support the boys. They were going crazy because if you like boxing, boxing's boxing as long as you're a good boxer.
Now another step up. Thousands of fans at the Motorpoint Arena in Cardiff. Next month, local boy Craig Kennedy faces Matt Askin in the main event for the British Cruiserweight title. Ashley Brace will be on the bill too, although her opponent hasn't yet been named.
I did say the last time I was there, I want to be on a big show like this. But yeah, I didn't think it'd come this soon, but you know, it's making me train harder.
It's so different to 2014, where she had to stay at home and watch as England's Nicola Adams won gold. Adams herself has now gone pro too. Speculation, two of the best female boxers in the UK could meet in the ring in future.
We've got a little bit of something to sort out. I believe if I had gone to the Commonwealth Games, it would have been me coming home with that gold medal. But it's just the fact that I respect her and I think she's a fantastic boxer. But that's what I want. I want to be the best. And you've got to be. It's no point wanting to be second in this game.
Back at home in Blaenau Gwent, she's a teaching assistant by day, a trainer for others at night, a pro with promise who refuses to lie down.
And we wish her well, Jamie.
Thomas, thank you. Most of us have heard of London's Marble Arch, but did you know the famous monument has a twin here in Wales? Marble Arch sits at one end of the A5 road, and here the Holyhead Arch is at the other. But ours is largely forgotten, so now there's a call to move it somewhere more prominent. Roger Pinney reports.
It's the story of two arches at opposite ends of one of Britain's greatest historic highways. In London, Marble Arch, so famous it lends its name to an entire district. And in Holyhead, the other slightly older one. It goes hardly noticed. Once a gateway to Wales, the Holyhead Arch is marooned, now stranded by the changing shape of the port. The inscription reads that it's in memory of a visit to Anglesey by King George IV. But what this arch really celebrates is something far more important than a royal visit: the completion of Britain's first modern road, the first fully engineered road since Roman times. 250 miles from Holyhead to London. Or should that be London to Holyhead?
One of Britain's severest critics pays her a visit. The Dublin steamer brings heirs dour-faced President Eamon de Valera.
The Holyhead Arch was already more than 100 years old when de Valera passed by it in 1938. Then, as now, it was all about Ireland. That's why Thomas Telford built his road, the A5, linking the first city of Empire, London, with arguably the second, Dublin. And all the traffic passed through Holyhead and its arch. So should the arch be moved out of the port to where the A5 now ends?
No. Put at the start of the A5, not at the end of the A5, because the end of the A5 is Marble Arch. Put it in London, I'll guarantee you that would have been looked after, cleaned up, and quite a lot of people watching it. If we can have half of those people that go to see Marble Arch in London, in Holyhead, wow, what a fantastic idea.
The company which owns the port and the arch doesn't seem particularly bothered about losing it. But beyond paying for its move and finding somewhere to put the arch, there are other issues. It's listed, and so are the buildings next to it. The old Customs House and Harbour Office. In heritage terms, equally important. Should they move too?
Roger Pinney reporting. The National Assembly welcomed a very special guest of honour today. Vidar, a former army sniffer dog, served in Afghanistan and sniffed out roadside bombs which could have killed British troops. He saved countless lives but was forced to retire when he became scared of loud noises. The hero dog was then adopted by Reserve Army medic Angie MacDonald.
He spent 2 years out there searching for bombs and, for arms and things. Saved countless lives, military and civilian. But he started showing signs of being gun shy, which is he reacted. He's very scared of the mangs and didn't like the gunfire. So he started to switch off, wanting to run away all the time. He was scared.
You needed a fur coat if you were outside today. Let's see what the weather has in store. Derek, what have you got?
Yes, well, there's a change on the way, Jamie. It is going to turn a little bit milder over the next few days, with daytime temperatures up to 10 or 11 Celsius. Now, after yesterday's sunshine, today hasn't been quite so nice, cloudy and hazy in Clydach Vale, clearer in Llanguirfon, in Ceredigion, with this beautiful sunset. So this evening, spots of rain in the northeast. These will clear. Dry overnight for Valentine's night. Some mist and fog patches. Maybe a drop of rain in Pembrokeshire late in the night. Not a cold night, but as low as 3 Celsius in Snowdonia. So here's the picture then for 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. At this stage, most of North and Mid Wales dry. A bit grey and murky in places, though. Watch out for some mist and fog on higher ground. Not dry everywhere in the morning, because in the south and the southwest we'll have some rain, and that could be on the heavy side. Now, during the day, this rain is going to spread northeastwards across the rest of the country, but it will clear. We'll see some drier, brighter weather moving in from the southwest in the afternoon. The sun will come out with 1 or 2 showers, and temperatures will end up higher than today, 8 to 11 Celsius, with the wind turning round into the southwest. So in Wrexham tomorrow, a dry morning, a little bit of rain in the afternoon, but dry and brighter later, up to 9 in Chirk. In Carmarthenshire, some rain in the morning, dry and brightening up in the afternoon, and milder. Tomorrow evening, a few showers will clear through. Dry overnight, bar the odd shower in the north and over Cardigan Bay. Fog patches in Monmouthshire, with temperatures in Powys dropping as low as 4. Thursday should be a decent day. The fog in Monmouthshire will lift. Couple of showers in Mid and North Wales. Elsewhere dry with some sunshine. More dry weather on Friday. We may see some rain later in the south and west. Jamie.
Derek, thanks very much. And the headlines again. US National Security Advisor Michael Flynn has resigned over allegations he discussed US sanctions with Russia before President Donald Trump took office. Mr. Flynn is said to have misled officials about his conversations with Russia's ambassador before his own appointment. The chair and vice chair of Sport Wales, the organisation which develops grassroots and elite sports, have been suspended while separate complaints and concerns are looked into. A review by the Welsh Government also found a significant breakdown of relations at a senior level. I'll have an update for you here at 8 o'clock and again after the BBC News at 10. That's Wales Today. Thank you for watching. From all of us on the programme, good evening.